My wife said my parents were right about you, so I showed her the text where they begged for money. The words landed like a slap you don't feel until a second later. We were standing in our kitchen with the overhead light too bright, the dishwasher half open, a wet towel bunched in my fist, and my wife, Hannah, looked me dead in the face and said, "My parents were right about you." Her voice didn't even shake. It had that clean, final tone people use when they want to win. Then she added, quieter but sharper, "You're exactly who they said you were." I felt my stomach drop hard enough. I actually had to grip the counter because my legs went stupid. The towel slid in my hand. I could hear the fridge humming, the dog's nails clicking down the hallway, and somewhere outside a car door slammed. Normal life continuing like nothing had just cracked open. I didn't shout back. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. And something in my chest started to burn, hot and bitter and oddly calm at the same time. Hannah's arms were crossed tight, like she was bracing for impact, but her eyes were bright, angry bright. I could smell the tomato sauce from dinner, still hanging in the air, and the faint lemon scent of the cleaner I'd used on the stove, because of course I'd cleaned the stove. I heard myself say that again, and my voice came out low and rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. Hannah exhaled through her nose and repeated it, slower, like she wanted it to hurt more. "My parents were right about you." She tilted her head. "You act like you're doing us some favor just by being here." That's when I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. It wasn't a dramatic gotcha moment in my head. My hand was shaking so bad the screen lit up and immediately blurred because my fingers wouldn't register the Face ID on the first try. But I've been here before, not this exact sentence, but this exact feeling, being made small in my own home by someone else's script, and I knew if I didn't anchor myself in something real, I'd start apologizing for breathing. Hannah watched me with this mix of suspicion and annoyance, like I was about to change the subject to avoid accountability. "What are you doing?" she snapped. I didn't answer. I opened my messages, scrolled past the top ones, and found the thread that had been sitting there like a loaded gun I kept refusing to touch. Her dad's name, Gary. I turned the phone toward her. "If your parents were right about me," I said, and my throat tightened around the words, "then explain why they were begging me for money behind your back." It started on a Tuesday night in early spring, one of those nights where the air still has bite and the sky goes dark before you're ready. Hannah and I had been married 3 years at that point, together for 7. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. We had a small house in a suburb that wasn't trendy, but was quiet, a rescue dog, and a routine that mostly worked. I work in IT. Nothing glamorous, no startup bro fantasy, just a steady job that pays well enough if you're not trying to impress anyone. Hannah works in marketing, and she's good at it in a way that makes me proud and nervous because she can walk into a room and make people want things. Her parents are a lot. Gary is the kind of guy who talks like he's giving a TED Talk whenever he explains anything, even ordering coffee. Her mom, Denise, collects judgments like souvenirs. From the first time I met them, they treated me like a temporary inconvenience Hannah would eventually outgrow. They loved phrases like potential and ambition and standards. They asked what my 5-year plan was while I was holding a paper plate at their backyard barbecue. Gary once told me, smiling, "Hannah's always been drawn to projects, like I was a fixer-upper house with termites." Hannah used to roll her eyes at them. She'd squeeze my hand under the table and mouth, "Ignore them." She'd apologize afterward in the car, cheeks flushed, saying, "They don't mean it, they're just like that." And I believed her because I wanted to, because it's easier to believe your partner is on your team than to look too closely at how often she lets her family set the tone. The money thing started small. Gary texted me one afternoon while Hannah was in a meeting. "Hey, can you call me when you have a minute?" Just that. No emoji. No pliasantri. It made my stomach tighten because Gary never contacted me directly unless it was to invite us to some event where he'd make a speech about family values and stare at me like I was on probation. I called him on my lunch break, and he answered immediately, voice overly warm. "Son," he said. He never called me that before. "How are you, champ?" Alarm bells. Full choir. He did a whole little monologue about how proud he was of Hannah, how he worries about her stress, how the market is weird right now. Then he cleared his throat and said, "Listen, I hate to even ask, but we've got a short-term situation. And because I'm not made of stone, because I have parents too, because I know what it feels like to be stuck," I said, "What kind of situation?" Gary said, "Just a timing issue. A contractor payment. Some funds tied up. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was, but I knew how people sounded when they were lying smoothly. He asked for $2,000. Said he'd pay it back in 2 weeks. He also said, and I will never forget this because of how casually cruel it was, "Denise doesn't want Hannah worrying. She's sensitive. Sensitive. Like our marriage was a child-proof space and Hannah was an emotional hazard." He asked me not to tell her. I should have said no right then. I know that now. But in that moment, I pictured Hannah's face if she found out her parents were stressed, and I pictured the guilt she carries around them like a backpack she's been wearing since childhood. I pictured the family dinners, the icy silences, the way Gary can make Hannah feel like she's 12 again with one look. And I thought, if I can solve this quietly, maybe it helps her. So I sent the money. 2 weeks passed. No repayment. Gary texted again. "Hey, buddy. Quick update. Still waiting on that transfer. Can we push repayment to end of month?" Then a smiley face like that made it cute. End of month became next month. Next month became we're juggling a lot. Then Denise started texting too. Late at night. "We are so grateful for you. You're a good man. We'll make this right." And then, like clockwork, another request. Another just until Friday. Another don't mention this to Hannah. And here's the part that makes me feel stupid admitting it. I started keeping screenshots. Not because I was planning some revenge slideshow. Because something fell off, and I couldn't name it without sounding paranoid. So I saved it. Quietly. Like you save receipts when you're pretty sure you're about to be told you're imagining the bill. Meanwhile, publicly, her parents still treated me like the spare part in Hannah's life. Gary would make jokes about how the men in our family provide, while I sat there knowing I'd sent him half a month's mortgage payment. Denise would ask Hannah, right in front of me, if she'd thought about someone more driven, and then laugh like it was playful. I would feel heat crawl up my neck, and I'd swallow it, because Hannah would squeeze my knee under the table and whisper, "Please don't," like my dignity was a fire hazard she needed me to put out. I stopped sending money after the 4th request, not because I'd grown a spine overnight, but because I realized they weren't in a timing issue. They were in a pattern. They were using me. Gary got cold immediately. The warmth vanished. The sun disappeared. His texts turned clipped. Denise sent one long message about how family supports family and how it was disappointing I was being transactional. Transactional. From a woman who had asked me for money at midnight. I didn't tell Hannah. Not because I wanted to hide it. Because I was scared it would crack something in her that she wasn't ready to see. And because, if I'm being brutally honest, I didn't want her to choose them over me. I didn't want to find out that she would. Then this week happened. Hannah's job has been rough lately. She's been doing the thing where she's physically present, but emotionally somewhere else. Scrolling while I'm talking, snapping over small stuff, sleeping with her jaw clenched. Her parents have been in the background more than usual too, calling her, sending her articles, reminding her that success takes sacrifice. It's like the second Hannah started doubting herself, they swooped in to be the voice in her head again. On Friday, she came home angry. Not normal bad day angry, focused angry. She threw her bag on the couch hard enough the zipper clattered. She didn't pet the dog. She didn't ask about dinner. She walked straight into the kitchen where I was rinsing dishes and said, "We need to talk." I turned the faucet off. "Okay," I said, already bracing. Hannah's eyes were glossy, like she'd been holding tears back for hours. "My parents think you're holding me back," she said. And I swear to God she said it like she was repeating a sentence she'd practiced. "They think you don't push me, that you're comfortable, that you don't understand what I could be." My chest tightened. I didn't respond fast enough, so she kept going. "They said you make everything small. You act like a steady paycheck is the goal and not." She waved her hands, frustrated. "Not building something. Not expanding." I said, carefully, "Do you think that?" Hannah hesitated for half a second, and that half second was louder than anything she could have said. Then she exhaled and said, I think they're not wrong." And that's when we spiraled into the argument that ended with her saying that line. My parents were right about you, like she was stamping a verdict. So when I showed her Gary's texts, I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to stop the gaslight fog from filling the room. I was trying to put something factual on the table that wasn't just feelings and history and who said what at Sunday dinner. Hannah stared at my phone. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. Then her eyes narrowed. "What is this?" she demanded. "It's your dad," I said. My voice sounded strange to me, flat almost, asking me for money. Multiple times. For months. Hannah snatched the phone from my hand. She scrolled fast, like she was trying to get to the end of a bad story. Her mouth opened slightly. She kept scrolling. Her face changed in small increments. Confusion to disbelief to something like humiliation. "No," she whispered, and the word came out thin. "No, he wouldn't." Then she hit one of the screenshots where Gary said, "Don't tell Hannah. She'll freak out, and she's got enough on her plate. You're the stable one." Hannah's cheeks flushed bright red. "He said that?" she asked, voice rising. I nodded. "He did." She scrolled again and landed on Denise's message. "If you really love our family, you'll help. Hannah deserves peace." Hannah made this choking sound, half laugh, half sob. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at the screen like it might change if she blinked hard enough. They were using you." "Yeah," I said quietly. Hannah looked up at me, eyes wet now. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to watch you break," I almost said. "Because I was scared you'd offend them," I almost said. "Because I didn't want to be the guy who turns you against your parents," I almost said. What came out was the simplest truth. "Because every time they insult me, you tell me to ignore it." Hannah flinched like I'd hit her. I kept going, because once the door opened, I couldn't pretend anymore. "They've been calling me unambitious to your face while they're texting me for money behind your back," I said. "And you brought their words into our kitchen like they were gospel." Hannah's hand shook. She set the phone on the counter like it was hot. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I know you didn't know about the money," I said. "But you knew they didn't respect me. You've always known." Hannah wiped her cheeks with the heel of her palm, angry at her own tears. "I didn't mean." "You meant what you said." I cut in, and my voice cracked. "You said they were right about me." Hannah's eyes flashed. "I was angry. I was angry too," I said. "And I didn't tell you you're exactly who your parents said you were." Silence fell heavy between us. The dog wandered in and sat down, looking from me to Hannah like he was trying to figure out whose lap was safe. The kitchen light buzzed faintly. My hands were still damp from the dishes, and I realized my fingers had gone numb. Hannah finally whispered, "How much?" "You still the hair." "What? How much did you give them?" she asked, voice shaking with something darker now. Rage, maybe, or shame. I hesitated. "Just under 10 grand, I admitted. Hannah's eyes widened. She made a sound like she might throw up. $10,000? She repeated loud. "Over months," I said quickly, because I didn't want it to sound like I'd written them a blank check. Even though I kind of had. Hannah grabbed her phone and started dialing immediately. Her hand was shaking so badly, she hit the wrong contact the first time. When she finally got her dad, she didn't even say hello. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, voice sharp enough to cut glass. I could hear Gary's muffled confusion through the speaker. "Hannah, what are you talking about?" She put him on speaker without asking me. "Don't play dumb," Hannah snapped. "I'm looking at your text to my husband right now, asking him for money, telling him to keep it from me." There was a pause, long enough that I could hear the faint sound of a TV in the background on his end. Then Gary's voice shifted into that smooth tone he uses when he's about to reframe reality. "Oh, sweetheart," he said slow, that was nothing. A small family matter. I didn't want to stress you." Hannah laughed, one sharp, broken laugh. "A small family matter? You asked him for thousands of dollars." Gary's tone tightened. "You're being dramatic." Hannah's face twisted. "I'm being dramatic?" she snapped. "You've been telling me he's holding me back while you've been taking money from him like he's your personal ATM. Gary went quiet for a beat, then said colder, "We didn't take anything. He offered. He's a grown man." I felt my jaw clench, so hard my teeth hurt. Hannah's eyes shot to me, like she'd just heard the knife twist and realized how deep it went. "You begged," Hannah hissed, "and you told him to hide it from me." Gary sighed dramatically. "Hannah, You're tired. You're stressed. You're letting him poison you against your family. There it was. The pivot. The villain script, right on time. Hannah's hand shook around the phone. No, she said, voice low. You poisoned me against my husband. You did it for years. Gary's voice rose slightly. We've always wanted the best for you. Then pay him back, Hannah said, sharp. Pay him back this week. Gary scoffed. We don't have that kind of liquid cash sitting around, Hannah. You know that. Hannah stared at the counter like she was seeing the shape of his lies for the first time. So you asked him because you knew he did, she said softly. Gary's silence was answer enough. Hannah's voice turned flat. Don't call me, she said, and then she hung up. Just like that. No dramati gudvie. Just a clean click. She stood there breathing hard, cheeks wet, fists clenched. For a second I thought she might throw something. Instead, she slid down the cabinet and sat on the kitchen floor like her legs had stopped working. I didn't rush to comfort her. That sounds cruel, but I didn't know what comfort even meant in that moment. My own chest felt caved in. I stood there staring at the tile grout between her knees and thought, so this is what it takes for you to see them clearly. Me being used. Hannah wiped her face with both hands. I'm sorry, she said into her palms. I'm so sorry. I leaned back against the counter, exhausted. I don't know what to do with that right now, I admitted. She looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't know they were doing that, she repeated, like she was trying to build a bridge out of the only plank she had. I know, I said, but you believe them about me. Hannah flinched again. We sat in that silence for a long time. The dog eventually came over and pressed his head against Hannah's shoulder. She wrapped an arm around him automatically like muscle memory. Finally, she said, barely audible, they've been in my head my whole life. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. I know. Hannah's voice cracked. When I'm stressed, I hear them. I hear my mom saying I'm wasting my potential. I hear my dad saying I should want more. And she swallowed hard. I look at you, and you feel safe, and then they make me think safe is the same as small. That hurt in a different way than the insult. Because it was honest, and because it meant the fight wasn't just about money or texts. It was about the fact that my steadiness, my whole personality, had been turned into something shameful in her mind whenever she felt insecure. I crouched down across from her, not touching her yet. Safe isn't small, I said quietly. And you don't get to use me as the place you dump their fear. Hannah nodded quickly, tears falling again. I know. And I'm not doing this thing anymore, I added, voice steadier now. I'm not doing the smiling at dinner while they disrespect me. I'm not doing the secret loans. I'm not doing you asking me to ignore it so you don't have to confront them. Hannah looked up, eyes pleading. What do you want me to do? I almost laughed because the answer felt both obvious and impossible. Choose, I said simply. Not in some dramatic cut them off forever way night, but in the daily way. When they say something about me, you shut it down. When they ask for money, you tell them no. When you feel them in your head, you don't hand their words to me like they're yours. Hannah nodded, wiping her face again. Okay, she whispered. I wasn't magically okay. I still felt raw, like my skin had been scraped off. But something had changed. The truth was finally out in the open where it couldn't be softened into a misunderstanding. Over the next few days, the fallout was ugly and weirdly predictable. Denise texted Hannah paragraphs about betrayal and privacy and how I was turning her against family. Gary sent a message that read like a corporate apology, vague, defensive, with no actual responsibility. Neither of them mentioned repaying me. Not once. That told me everything I needed to know about what I was to them. Hannah didn't respond right away. She showed me the messages instead, hands trembling, like she was proving she wasn't hiding things anymore. She booked a therapy appointment without me asking. She started saying out loud, "That's not okay," when her mom tried to guilt trip her. Watching her do it felt like watching someone learn to walk after years of being told they were supposed to crawl. But there were still moments, small ones, that scared me. Like when Hannah's phone rang and she jumped, or when she got quiet after reading a text and her eyes went distant, like she was slipping back into that childhood role of good daughter. And I realized this wasn't a clean victory story. This was a messy rewiring. As for the money, I told Hannah I didn't care about getting it back as much as I cared about the principle of it. That was only half true. 10 grand isn't nothing to us. But honestly, what haunted me more was the ease with which her parents had taken it, while telling her I wasn't good enough. A week after the kitchen fight, Hannah sat beside me on the couch and said, "I want you to know something." I didn't look at her right away. I was still guarding my heart like it was bruised fruit. She said, "When I said they were right about you, I was trying to hurt you because I felt hurt. And that's not an excuse. It's just the ugliest thing I've done to you, and I need you to know I see it." My throat tightened. I nodded once. Hannah continued, voice shaking. "They begged for money and then called you small. But you weren't small. You were kind. And I let them take that kindness and use it like a weapon against you." I looked at her then. Her face was bare. No anger armor, no defensive tone. Just regret and fear and love, all tangled. I didn't forgive her in some dramatic burst. I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. What I said was, "I'm still here," and my voice cracked on the last word, because that was the truth I could manage. Still here. Still trying. Still hoping we could build something that didn't have her parents' fingerprints all over our marriage. Hannah reached for my hand slowly, like she didn't deserve it yet. I let her take it, but I didn't squeeze back right away. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because trust doesn't snap back into place just because the evidence is clear. Now, a month later, we're in this strange in-between. Her parents are furious. They've tried to recruit relatives. They've tried to rewrite the story into miscommunication. Gary sent one final message asking if I could be reasonable and let it go for the sake of Hannah. I didn't respond. Hannah didn't respond either. She just blocked him for a week and then unblocked him and blocked him again and cried in the shower like a person detoxing from something. We're in therapy. We're talking more than we ever have. Sometimes we fight, but the fights are different now. They're about what we do next, not about whether my reality is real. And I keep thinking about that moment in the kitchen, the dish towel in my fist, her eyes bright with borrowed contempt, and my phone in my shaking hand. I keep thinking about how close we came to becoming one of those couples that quietly rots from the inside while pretending everything is fine at family dinners. I don't know exactly where we'll end up. I know I love my wife. I also know love isn't a permission slip for disrespect. If Hannah ever says something like that to me again, if she ever pulls her parents' cruelty into our home and calls it truth, I'm not going to stand there gripping a towel and swallowing it. I've done enough swallowing for one lifetime. But for now, she's trying. And I'm trying. And her parents? They can keep telling themselves they were right about me if it helps them sleep. I've read their texts. I've seen the way they ask for help with one hand and point with the other. They weren't right about me. They were right about one thing, though. I'm done being their quiet little safety net.